There's something almost unfair about how well Jimin knows Jungkook. Not in a surface level, oh, they're close kind of way, but in that deep, quiet way where one person can say just a few words and the other person's entire face transforms. That's what happened, and if you've seen it, you already know exactly what I'm talking about. If you haven't, buckle up, because this is the kind of moment that reminds you why you fell in love with BTS in the first place. Let's set the scene. It wasn't during a grand stage performance or a high-production music video shoot. It was one of those quieter, in-between moments, the kind that fans almost miss if they aren't paying close enough attention. Jungkook was sitting there, looking a little tired, maybe a little lost in his own head. Anyone who's followed him for years knows that look. He gets quiet sometimes, retreats into himself, and usually the members let him be because they know him well enough to understand when to give space and when to step in. Jimin stepped in. And what he said, it wasn't a joke to get a laugh, it wasn't a dramatic declaration, it was something so specific, so personal, that it clearly came from years of knowing someone inside and out. The kind of thing that only works because the person saying it has been paying attention, really paying attention, not just to the big moments, but to the small ones, the preferences, the insecurities, the things that make Jungkook feel seen rather than just observed. Jungkook's reaction was immediate. His head turned, and then that smile. Not the performative one he gives cameras, not the polished, idle, perfect grin. This was the real one, the one that reaches his eyes before it even fully forms on his lips, the one that makes him look younger and softer and completely unguarded even for just a second, the one that ARMY has spent years trying to protect at all costs. Now, here's what's actually interesting, and this is where it goes beyond just being a cute moment. What Jimin did in that instant is something that communication researchers and psychologists actually study. It's called attunement. It's the ability to read another person's emotional state so accurately that your response lands exactly where they need it. Most people get better at this with family members over years and decades. Jimin does it with a bandmate in real time, often without any apparent effort. Think about how rare that is, especially in a group dynamic where everyone is performing, everyone is managing their public image, everyone is navigating the pressure of being one of the most watched people on the planet. In that context, moments of genuine, unfiltered connection don't happen by accident. They happen because two people have chosen over and over again to actually show up for each other. That's the thing about Jimin and Jungkook's dynamic that fans have always found so compelling, and that's also, honestly, why their relationship generates so much conversation. It's not just that they're close, it's that their closeness has texture, it has history. You can feel the weight of all the years behind a single exchange like this one. There's a clip from when Jungkook was significantly younger, barely a teenager, new to Seoul, new to the trainee life, visibly homesick and unsure of himself. And Jimin was one of the first people to make him feel like he belonged. Jimin has talked about this. Jungkook has talked about this. Neither of them makes it into a big story, which is somehow what makes it feel even more significant. It's not a talking point for them. It's just the foundation of who they are to each other. So when you watch a moment like this one, Jimin saying something and Jungkook lighting up, you're not just watching two people interact, you're watching the result of years of that history playing out in real time. You're watching the accumulated weight of choosing someone, day after day, in the mundane chaos of life on the road, in practice rooms, in green rooms, in hotel corridors at midnight. That smile from Jungkook isn't just a reaction to a sentence, it's a reaction to everything that sentence represents. And here's a question worth sitting with. How many people in your life know you well enough to say exactly the right thing at exactly the right time? Not because they rehearsed it, but because they've simply been present. That's actually a harder question than it sounds. Most of us can name maybe one or two people like that if we're lucky. Jungkook clearly has that in Jimin. And whether you're an ARMY who's been watching from the very beginning or someone who just stumbled across this clip today, that's something universally recognizable. It doesn't require any K-pop knowledge. It just requires having felt at some point in your life what it's like to be truly known by someone. That universality is also why moments like this one travel so far online. Comment sections under clips like this are genuinely fascinating to scroll through. You'll find longtime fans dissecting every microsecond of Jungkook's expression with the precision of someone analyzing film footage. You'll find newer fans who found BTS through a recommendation algorithm and are now 3 hours deep in a rabbit hole they didn't plan on entering. And then you'll find people who don't follow BTS at all. People who clicked because someone shared it with a caption like, "I want someone to look at me the way Jungkook looks when Jimin talks," and they get it instantly. No context needed. That, by the way, is not an accident of the algorithm, it's a reflection of something genuinely human at the center of that moment. Let's talk about the comments for a second, because the fan responses to moments like this one are their own kind of art form. There's the classic, "they really are soulmates" contingent. And honestly, within the specific emotional shorthand of ARMY, that word carries a lot of meaning. It's not necessarily romantic, it's more about the idea of two people who found each other and stayed. Then there's the more analytical crowd who will connect this moment to a clip from 3 years ago, building a timeline of evidence that these two people have always looked out for each other in exactly this way. And there's always someone who just writes, "I'm not okay," followed by a string of broken heart emojis, which somehow communicates more than a paragraph could. What's worth noting is how these reactions, as varied as they are, all point to the same core feeling. This moment matters. It doesn't matter in the way that a chart record matters or a sold-out stadium matters. It matters in the quieter, more personal way, the way that makes you feel for a moment like genuine human connection is still possible and real, and something to be celebrated rather than performed.
And maybe that's the most significant thing about this whole moment. In an era where everything is increasingly curated and filtered and designed for maximum engagement, watching Jungkook's face in that split second is like a small exhale. His expression didn't go through PR, it didn't get softened for the camera. It was just there, real. And Jimin, to his credit, didn't make a big deal of it either. He didn't play to the cameras, he wasn't performing warmth, he was just being warm. There's a subtle but important distinction there that I think fans feel even when they don't always articulate it explicitly. We've all seen entertainers perform closeness, the exaggerated hugs, the over-the-top declarations of love that feel hollow the moment they leave the screen. This wasn't that. This had the specific texture of something that was actually happening between two real people, and the camera just happened to catch it. That's also what makes it so replayable, because every time you watch it, you're not looking for new information, you already know what happens. You watch it again because the feeling it gives you is worth returning to. A little warmth in whatever your day is. A reminder that the kind of friendship where someone just knows is real and it exists, and sometimes you get to witness it. It's also worth mentioning, because it speaks to the specific kind of attention ARMY pays, that fans noticed this before most media outlets did. The clips circulated through fan accounts, through threads, through quote retweets, where people added their own layer of reaction. By the time it made it to the more mainstream corners of the internet, it had already been analyzed and felt and argued over by the people who care most. That's a kind of community investment that's actually pretty remarkable. These aren't passive viewers. They are, collectively, one of the most attentive audiences a performer could ever have. And Jimin and Jungkook, knowingly or not, consistently give that audience something worth paying attention to, not because they're performing for them, but precisely because sometimes they aren't. There's something that Jimin said in an interview once, not about this specific moment, but about his relationship with Jungkook in general, where he talked about how he used to worry about Jungkook, the way an older brother worries, even when there's no specific reason to. Just a baseline care that doesn't require justification. That kind of relationship is built in private, in the unsexy everyday moments that don't make it to the highlight reels. It's built in the checking in, the small adjustments, the paying attention even when no one is watching. And then it shows up, fully formed in a moment like this one, and everyone who sees it recognizes it immediately because they've felt something like it themselves, or they've longed for it. That recognition is the whole thing. That's why we're still talking about it. So what does this moment ultimately tell us? Honestly, probably more than it seems at first glance. It tells us something about longevity, about what it looks like when people stay committed to truly knowing each other over years through enormous pressure and change. It tells us something about the specific kind of warmth that comes not from grand gestures, but from consistent, quiet attention. It tells us something about Jungkook, that beneath all the artistry and the records and the sheer force of his talent, there's someone who can still be completely undone by a few kind words from the right person. And it tells us something about Jimin, that his instinct, even in the middle of everything, is to notice and to show up. Honestly, that's the kind of thing worth celebrating, not just because it's a good moment in a sea of content, but because it's a reminder of what actually matters. The records will be broken eventually, the tours will end, but the people who knew how to make you smile when you needed it, those stay with you differently. Now, I want to hear from you. Did you see this moment when it first circulated, or did you find it later? And more importantly, do you have someone in your life who just knows exactly what to say? Drop it in the comments because I genuinely want to know, and honestly, this comment section deserves to be a wholesome one today. If this kind of deep dive content is your thing, where we go beyond the surface and actually talk about what makes these moments meaningful, then make sure you're subscribed because this channel is built entirely around exactly that. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next one, and if this resonated with you, share it with one person who needs a little warmth in their day, because that's really what Jimin and Jungkook just modeled for all of us. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can do is simply show up for someone. Let's do a little bit of that for each other, too.